Hello, hi everyone. Just going to wait a couple of minutes, just make a bit of chit chat to let people come on and realise that we've gone live in the Made Simple group community. So how are we doing today? Hope everybody's okay. So today's session, over the last few weeks, we've been doing sessions around book writing, and that's because it's National Book Writing Month. It was Authors' Day on Saturday, which was great for me because, of course, I was sat at home tapping away, nearly there. So today's session, we had a few questions about this over the last couple of sessions, is about pitching to a publisher. Okay, so before we do that, I'll just welcome you. My name's Michelle Carville. You are now in the Made Simple group community, and this is a community which is all about startups helping startups, and that's what we want to engender, and that's what we're here to support and to facilitate as much as possible. And it's wonderful to see, really wonderful to see the communications and the conversations that are going on within the community. So keep that up. We put a post out there last week about lurking, you know, the lurkers, the people around the periphery that tune in and watch all of this stuff and interact, maybe, well, see stuff, but don't necessarily interact. So jump in and say hello, you know, even if it's just a simple thumbs up to let us know that you're around, or make a comment, whatever you want out of the community. The community is there to not only network with other people, but to also ask questions. Ask questions. What is it you want? What is it you need? How can Made Simple be helping you? And how can the Made Simple group community be helping one another? After all, there are over 3,000 people in that community, and the Made Simple community is exclusive to Made Simple customers. So those customers have largely come through forming their company, and the comments and the questions and the things that we see arising are all questions about, I need an accountant, I need some advice on this, does anybody have any knowledge about such and such, you know. So it's all there for people to support and help one another. And periodically we will jump in with support, with some topics like this. So these Tuesday Teaches, we're going to keep Tuesday Teach going. This is the last one today about the book, because writing a book was something that came up, and I'm writing a book, so we thought, let's use the knowledge we've got internally here at Made Simple and share that knowledge out to others within the community, which makes sense. And next week, we've actually got one of our partners, Free Agent. So when you form your company with Made Simple Group, there are a lot of different offers that are part of your package. So the business toolkit is part of all of our company formation packages, and within that toolkit there are various offers and things that you can get involved with. So one of those is actually a trial with Free Agent, and we've been working with Free Agent for a number of years, and they provide accountancy software for startup and small businesses. Their chief accountant, Emily, is actually going to come on to the Tuesday Teach next Tuesday, so want to get in your diaries. Next Tuesday, 12:30, we will be going live with Emily from Free Agent. So there'll be a split screen, there'll be us and there'll be the Free Agent team, and she will be doing a live Q&A on anything around your accountancy and tax questions. So if you've got any questions around accountancy and tax, whatever it is, remember there are no stupid questions, anything counts, then plug away in the comments, let us know, comment after this post, just let us know what they are. We've got some questions already for Emily, but you know, the more of you can get involved, the better. So moving on now to today's session. So today's session is all about pitching to a publisher. So we talked about a couple of weeks ago, mapping out your book, getting the big idea, and we talked about how how I do that is put lots of post-its with all my ideas all over the place, all the bits that need to go into the book, and then I start to cluster them into segments and into clusters, and that becomes the foundation for the spine of the book, really. It is the underlying theme, the big idea is running all the way through it, and then I create my chapters, and that is the content for the book. So that's what we talked about in that session. Then last week we talked about making the time to write, you know, and fitting it in around your life, and that discipline that is required, and ways that you can book stuff out of your diary or chunk things down so that you understand how long the process is going to be and how you're going to fit that all in. So that was last week. This week is the all important. Okay, so I'm clear on my idea. I understand my time commitment and I know how I'm going to do that. Now what about writing it and pitching it to your publisher? And there are two ways that I suppose you can go about this. One is that you may already have written a book and you might be thinking, right, now I've got this great piece of content and now I want to get it out there. And what I would suggest is finding the right publisher for you is a really important part of the process. And a good way to find the right publisher is to look at the books that you enjoy and see who's published those books. So, you know, it might be that you've read a lot of books by a certain, you know, that you read a certain book and you think, well, who published this? And then you read another book and you think, that's a really great book as well. I love that style. Oh, who published this? It might be it's the same publisher, and it might be that, therefore, that style of book is the publisher that you want to go to. So seeking out the publisher, I mean, you can Google book publishers, you can go into Waterstones or any other reputable bookstore and look at some of the top 10 or top 50 best-selling books, non-fiction books or fiction books, depending on what you're writing, and look at who is publishing those books. Just look at who the publishers are and then look them up and start to make contact. So you build your publisher list. For me, that's exactly what I did. I kind of had an idea of the types of publishers that I wanted to work with, and I had those listed out. The all-important part is, you know, some of those publishers will have online portals where you can go and they will walk you through a process of, well, tell us a bit about the concept of your book, tell us about, you know, why you're writing this book, who is this book positioned at, and all of those aspects. And some of that can be done online. For some of it, it's, you know, for some of them, and they're all different, you know, and I don't know how they all operate, so that's for you to find out. But what they are keen to understand is not just to take your content and publish it, but what about you? You know, they're as interested in you, the author, as they are the content, because you're the story, you're part of that story as the author of this book. You know, why are you writing this book? And why are you credible to write this book? If it's a book about educational or, you know, your advisory, then where is your credibility coming from to be a voice, an authentic voice on the topic that you want to write about? And of course, what really that is getting to is the evidence. What evidence is there about you? You know, what is your pedigree? What have you been doing? You know, have you done talks about this topic? Have you blogged about this topic? Are you doing nice thought leadership pieces regularly about this topic? So it's about understanding yourself and how you're positioned and what they're expecting. So, you know, don't expect to just write the book and think, yeah, that's a great piece of content, and give it in to somebody and they say, well, there you go, you tell me now, you know, what you're going to do with it and how you're going to market it. They are as interested in you being able to help market and promote this book as they are. You know, so they are not necessarily your sole marketing engine. They are publishers and they have great connections and they really know how to publish a book. And as I've talked about in the previous couple of weeks, they will give you steer and stretch you and help you join up the dots that maybe you yourself as the author may not have been thinking about. So from that perspective, you know, they really have a fantastic insight and experience for you to tap into. But they are not there to be the sole purpose of marketing your book. Of course, they want your book to be a success, but you are as much part of that. So it comes down to, you know, when you're pitching your book to them, you also have to sell yourself. okay? And some of us are not very good at doing that, you know, and this is where you've really got to understand about how you can sell yourself. What is it? What are the platforms that you're already on, and what authority can you bring to the party, you know, from a knowledge and thought leadership perspective? So those are things to think about. I'm going to share with you the stuff that I put into, which might be useful for you, the contents of the way I pitched the book. Okay, so this will give us some talking points. So if I'm looking down, I'm just looking down at my actual pitch proposition. So in the contents of this, you know, and this is a 9-page document, this pitch. It isn't just I'm writing a nice book. You know, it goes into all of these components and it's broken down. So these are things that you might want to get a pen and you might want to write these things down or watch it back. And again, you can take note of these. So about the author, about you need to give a bit of a profile about you, who you are. And as I said before, it isn't, you know, just about where you live and you're married and you've got 5 children or whatever that story is. It's really about selling yourself and the platforms that you have and why you are the authority to write this book, okay? If you're writing a non-fiction book, then again, still, you know, they still want the backstory. They still want to understand where this story has come about. So you know, tell that story of yourself and make sure that about the author is right up there about you. So, you know, in my about the author, I've got speaking engagements, I've got a profile about me. So it's, you know, a good 500-word profile about who I am, my career, what I've been doing, what I'm passionate about. Speaking engagements. So if you've done speaking engagements or, you know, you've done any coaching or anything that's relevant to the book, put those in. Again, you might want to add in some testimonials and things of what other people have said about you. Here I've got previous books published. So of course, if you've ever published a book before, that's really going to help. I mean, in this case, remember, I've gone from one publisher to another publisher. So they're not necessarily going to know that, oh, Michelle published a book before. So you have to tell them these things. And of course, that adds another layer of why this person is the right person to be taking on and publishing their book. So previous books published, and of course as the previous books published, it isn't just a case of, oh, I published this book and there's the title. They want to know the detail. Well, how many sales did that book get, and how it performed as well, and who was part of it, and what kind of reviews did it get on Amazon, and those types of things. So again, that's all good marketing activity for you to pull out those positive messages and put them into your pitch, because effectively this is your pitch. And then you want to talk about the book, okay? So I'll just run through the content. So my first bit about the book is who will want it and why will they buy it? So what you're getting to there is who is this book positioned for and why will they buy it? You know, it's not just who's it for, who's the target audience. It's kind of like, what are you giving them to make them so compelled to want to buy this? So who will want it and why will they buy it? What problem are you solving for them? What problem do you know about that's already out there? So for example, a lot of, you know, my book's about helping leaders and CEOs with social media strategy and tactics. Now, as I've said before, it might be that a lot of people in that position already have teams doing social media for them, but they themselves may not be comfortable with it. So the problem I'm solving is, you know, you may not be comfortable with it. You may have teams doing this. You may have whole departments. It may be hugely successful for your business, but you as a leader, you as the CEO, don't feel comfortable with these resources to be able to join those conversations and get involved, even though there's loads of research that says that that's a positive thing to do. So that's the problem I'm solving. So who will want it? Leaders and CEOs who are feeling like they want to get involved, but they don't really know how to get involved, and they certainly don't want to get involved and make a mess of it. And why will they buy it? Because this is going to give them a step-by-step introduction into exactly how they should be doing it. It's going to save them time from having to go and research a whole load of other stuff, and it's going to make sure that, you know, it is a walk-through, step-by-step roadmap of only the things they need to know how to do. So it's not going to bamboozle them, it's going to do that. So that's a very compelling message. You know, who will want it and why will they buy it? Who's the audience? What problem are you solving for that audience? Is the why, okay? So think about that. Then I move on to features most likely to appeal to potential buyers. Well, my potential buyers are going to be time-strapped, very busy, possibly thinking, I don't really want to be getting into this, frightened of moving into that space in case they make a mistake, you know, lots of different challenges around that. So the features about why they're going to buy it, what is going to appeal, those features are, well, I'm going to make it easy, I'm going to make it simple, I'm going to give them step-by-steps, I'm going to save them time, they can trust what I'm telling them, I'm only going to give them what they need to know, not the whole everything that, you know, is possibly going on in social, because they don't need to know all of that, they just need to know what they need to know and do that properly. So those are the most compelling features, the most appealing features to those buyers, and those are the things that you want to get front of mind, because remember, the publisher isn't just publishing this book and putting it in a beautiful cover and making it look great. They've got to sell this book, and it's got to be a success for them, as well as you know, but for them, that's what they're looking at. So for here, you've really got to sell what the features are. Complementary online material. So will there be complementary online material? Now, a lot of books I read, previous books that I've written, there's always been a support with some kind of online resource. So whether it's an online blog to keep things up to date, because social media is moving fast all the time and I'm going to keep it updated with various things. Is it a microsite where people can go to and get resources? It might be that you've put a lot of diagrams and models in your book, and how-to checklists and various things, which actually are a bit of a nuisance to try and photocopy out of the book. So actually they can go onto this site and you can keep that relationship going with them. So will there be complementary online material? If there is going to be, if that's part of it, pitch it into the book, because that tells the publisher that you're in this for the longer game. You're not just putting the book and walking away. You're actually committed to keeping some longevity and updates going for this book. And with our first book, with the first book of Business of Being Social, it was really that blog that was the catalyst for the second edition, because things were being updated all the time. People were visiting that blog. There was questions. It showed the publisher that actually, we need to do more on this. And of course, that was the call for, we really need you to do a second edition. So if there's complementary online material, put it in there. Chapter outline, so we've already talked about that. You're going to include your chapter outline in the pitch. They're going to want to know how this book is structured, and you'll have already got that down, so you put your chapter outline and you make it very clear as to what is going to go into the book. The other thing they'll want to know about is the length of the book, and we've talked about this as well, and there are some short books that are sometimes 35 to 40,000 word counts, or there are some, you know, the meatier books, not too big, but you know, generally it's between 70 to 80,000 words. So they're going to want to see what kind of word count you're looking at, because they will know the types of books that they usually publish and whether this book is going to fit in with their word count, and the price point as well, because you know, you can get away with a 35, 40,000 word book for maybe $7.99, $9.99-ish price range. You know, if they have a price point that they like to market a book at, then you're going to have to bump that word count up. So depending on how much the book sells for and the type of content that's going into it will determine, is related to the word count as well. So they want to know what the length of the book is, the price point. They want to know what you're thinking the price point will be. And again, if you've done your research, if you've been to the bookstores and you've had a look around, and the books that you read and the books that you enjoy and the books that this particular publisher generally publishes, there will be a kind of average price point and there'll be an average word count. So if you really want to fit into their world, you don't want to go totally against that. You want to, you know, you want to find a publisher where your work fits. So again, think about the price point. The date of the likely manuscript. Now, this is important for them because they have publishing schedules and they will be working, they will already have works, body of works that are all in their pipeline, so they know where their gaps are. And that will depend, you know, what they can take and what kind of genre and maybe a similar topic to the topic you're writing about will determine their schedule. So your date of likely manuscript, you may have already written the book, you may be halfway through, you may not even have started. You may have written lots of blogs, you know, that are going to become the foundation of this book. So you may be at different places as to what that manuscript, date of that manuscript is. So they're interested in the reality, and you know, and you can't just put your finger in the air and say, oh yeah, I've got an idea and I think I can probably get it done by next September. We've said really, starting from scratch, depending on the size and scale of the book, they're going to give you some help with that if you've not done that before. But there will be, you know, it is important for them to understand when you can deliver this manuscript. Okay, so where are you in that? Have you done any writing? Are you starting from scratch? Those are aspects that you will include in that area. The business context. So mine is a non-fiction book, so it's the business context. Why does this book fit into the business context? So for me, what I did is I brought in a lot of research in this area about the research around how CEOs and leaders being social, having direct conversations with customers are actually showing a significant increase in revenues and positivity for brands and businesses where that is happening. So there's a business context, there's a business case for this book. You know, there's a business case for helping CEOs and leaders to learn about social, because there's lots of stats and facts out there around how it impacts the bottom line of businesses. And how things are moving and businesses are changing and consumers expect to be able to, you know, there's so much that, you know, that I could have added into there. And so I did. So I really sold that proposition as, look, here is the reality. This is what's happening. And nobody's addressing that. There's very little around what is being addressed. And so that's the business context. It's like the business case for the book. It's not just the business context of why you're writing this book. It's a case of, and I've not found many other people. I've found blogs, I've found a couple of ebooks, there's lots of articles around there. In fact, there's a growing body of article around it, but there aren't any other real books that I could go to the bookstore and pick that up and say, this is for a CEO or leader that is going to give them what my book is going to give them. So it's that kind of competitive landscape. It's the business case for your book that has to go into this pitch. Sample of suggested case studies. So in my book, one of the things that I introduced was interviews with CEOs and leaders who were using social, real world, you know, rough and ready kind of from the horse's mouth conversations around why they use it, how they're finding it, how they fit it into the day, you know, all the do's and don'ts aspect. And of course, what I wanted to do, because the interviews was a big part of what I wanted to include in this book, I actually had to showcase that these are the types of interviews that I want to do, and these are the people that I want to select. So it wasn't all down there, it was just a few of them, you know. I think I put 3 different case studies of typical CEOs that I would like to interview, and here's why. In there, and I'd contacted a couple of them via social media, and they've come back and said, yeah, I'd be really keen for that. So I already had that kind of in the bag to be able to say, oh well, and these people have already agreed to it, and I've only asked 3 people, you know, and 2 out of 3 have come back to me straight away. So the more I ask, I'm sure the more I can get. Endorsements from others about me as somebody who knows about what I'm talking about, you know. So I've done a lot of training, I've worked with a lot of organizations, I've coached leaders. So of course I went and I got those endorsements and those testimonials, and I put them in this pitch together with endorsements from the previous book, so that actually it builds a picture that, you know, it's helping the publisher to think, yeah, I trust that this person is going to deliver on what they're pitching me here. Okay, so they're, you know, adding that credibility factor in there really helps. Now, it might be that those endorsements aren't about books you've written before, because you've never written a book before, but the work that you've done before. If this book is related to the work that you've done, or the advice or consulting or coaching that you've done, then that, you definitely want to have some kind of endorsement aspect in there. It's kind of social proof that you know what you're talking about and that others trust you and trust your voice. How many books would you expect to sell year one? Now, that is such a big question. Who knows? I was in a good situation because I'd published another book, and I was able to say, well, this is what happened in year one with that book, and I've no reason to understand why this book would be any different, other than the fact that there are more social media books out there right now. But the other thing that they're looking for there is, how many books would I expect to sell? One of the things that I did is put a marketing plan in this book. So it was kind of like, well, I've got so many people that I could talk to on Twitter. I've got this many connections on LinkedIn. I have a database of so many people who have downloaded my social media plans and my marketing plans, of around 3,000 people. I've got partnerships and relationships with, for example, like the Made Simple group tribe of people and other partners that Made Simple have that would be interested in the book. So it's all your connections and your network aspects, and you just jot those down into, well, who am I connected to, and how could I get this book out there? Have I got some speaking engagements? Have I got other things where I could take the book to and I could promote it? It's all of those things there. So think about not just how many you would expect to sell and give a number. It's about what's your marketing plan to support that. Competitors, I touched on that. I touched on competitors and around picking up if there's any other books out there that are like your book and why your book is different. Acknowledge that there are other books out there, because there will be, and keep coming back to the point why yours is different. It was really interesting for me. I did a lot of research into competitor books at the time, and it was really useful. It kind of gave me comfort that what I was writing there was a gap, and I think if I'd done all my research and found that there wasn't that gap, would I have written the book? Potentially not, so it's definitely worth doing that front-loaded research, as we talked about. And then, of course, at the back, I've got things about, did we miss anything? Is there anything missed? You can put anything you feel that you want to share in there. I'm just flicking through this to see if there's anything else I missed out on. Business concept, chapter outline, features most likely to appeal, complementary online material, we've gone through that. Title, I did suggest, it's interesting, I did suggest two different titles. I really loved the Social CEO handbook, and that's a hashtag that works on social media really well. But I had also put in Get Social, with the kind of double meaning of get social is as in the active, get social, but also I get social. So I had put that in, and the title and the look and feel of your book is just as important, but you do have to bow to, sometimes, not always, it's a conversation, and it can be a compromise, but I was very comfortable with them when they said to me, look, the Social CEO Handbook, great name, but it kind of, anybody who's a leader or an aspiring leader who is not a CEO, that kind of takes them out of the market for this book. You're cutting down your market size, and when you put it like that, it's 100% right, because it is for leaders and aspiring leaders, and they may not be CEOs, but they may still be very senior leaders who want to get involved and can still make a great impact. And so they were right, and Get Social, still one of the titles that I put forward, was selected. They like that too. So sometimes, even though the front of this is called the Social CEO Handbook, and that's not what it's called, I'm really happy with where we got to. So yeah, put your title in and maybe your tagline and what you expect, but be prepared to have those conversations. Be prepared to compromise, because, you know, they are publishers, and it's about working together and then taking your advice and you going to them because they're giving you advice. So, you know, the respectful thing is to listen up and take their suggestions on board and ask questions about those suggestions, and if it's all backed up, then why wouldn't you go with those suggestions? So guys, I think that's it for today. If you've got any questions, I can't actually see any of the comments at the moment because of the way my screen's configured, but if there are any comments, I'm really happy to answer any more questions. But hopefully that's given you a comprehensive work through about how to construct a pitch. You know, I didn't find a template online. I went through it and thought, if I had to market this book and I had to pitch something, I'm used to pitching ideas and concepts, and so I thought, you know, I'm just going to use the same kind of framework, which is what's my business case, why me, and what am I going to bring to the party, and how am I going to make life easy for you as the publisher? You know, how am I going to support you, and how am I going to make your publishing simple? You know, so I hope that was useful. And as I say, any questions, just ask away, whether now or on the replay. We're always looking and we'll jump in. The next Tuesday Teach, as I said, is going to be about, it's a Q&A with a chief accountant from Free Agent. So if you've got any questions, I mean, a question came up yesterday in the community about getting started with your account. So jump on into the Q&A and ask people who know what they're talking about, and you know, pick the brains. So any questions, it's just a question, a Q&A, Tuesday Teach. Hopefully you'll get a lot of value out of it. We'll be giving you some reminders that that's happening next Tuesday, but get it in the diary, ask any questions, and that is it for today. So enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Thank you for tuning in. Again, anything you want to know about with our Tuesday Teaches, let us know. We can give you advice on, you know, or find the right people to give you advice. People asked us about accounting, we're bringing in Free Agent. We've got their chief accountant to talk about accounting. So if there's anything else you want us to do, we can hop in, and we will try and facilitate that as much as we can for you. So good news, if you're writing books, happy book writing. Hope that was useful. And if you're thinking about it, then watch all the other bits of this series, because there's some nice stuff in there for you to think about. Okay, I'll speak to you next week. In the meantime, have a great week. Bye.